Hello, everyone. This is our inaugural episode of Discourse, where we're going to be talking about either a film or a TV show or perhaps even a cartoon. And today was so appropriate because we are currently in the month of spoops. We're doing a nice little spoopy movie review or just discussion about one of my favorite films of all time, 1979's Alien. I figure for this one, we'll go back and forth, talking about what we like about the film, what we dislike about the film, what we're mixed on and things. But I figure for this first part, I want to kind of get our general thoughts about the movie and kind of like our first viewing experience for it. I'll go ahead and start, and we'll just whoever wants to go next, you just feel free to chime in or just let me know. But for myself, as you guys know, I love 1979's Alien. I grew up with this movie. It's one of those. It's in my top 10 favorite films of all time. I've talked about it plenty of times on stream, but I have to say, like, my first viewing experience for this film was terrifying because this was my first radar movie that I ever saw. I was about 10 years old, I want to say, and I think this came on like HBO or one of those premiere channels like way back in the day, like in the early 2000s. And I had I stayed up late at night to watch it. And like my parents didn't even know about it, where I actually snuck downstairs. We had a television set downstairs in the basement, which is a perfect place to watch Alien for the first time. And I actually got to make sure that like they didn't even know I was down there. I put the volume like super low, and I even brought my blanket and I put over the TV, so I was just getting all that nice television radiation directly into my eyes and face as I watched this movie. But I was captivated by it, but also so scared of it, and I didn't really sleep very well for like 3 years. Like the first time I came in there, the first night, I did not sleep at all. And I think I had nightmares. But, years later, I developed such a love for the movie and the sequel, Aliens. And until now, it's like, it's one of my favorite films of all time. It's probably my top 5, along with being in my top 10. But what was, I'm curious, anyone else's, first viewing for Alien? What did you feel when you first saw this movie? We'll go ahead and we'll go with Deadpool. What about you?
Well, I didn't really watch the movie until I was older because when I was younger, I never really cared much for the horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw them when I was like in my early 20s.
Oh, okay. So you saw one when you were a lot older.
Yeah. So I mean, at this point, like I was a little bit more mature and could appreciate the movie for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, it was just on TV one night, just watched it, and like, it was great. It's like, wow, this is a really good movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? What your first kind of exposure to Alien was? What about you, Austin?
So I had a friend whose favorite movies were either Aliens and Indiana Jones, and I watched it with him and a bunch of other people because he loved, and he kind of got me hooked into like kind of action, sci-fi, and those kind of movies.
Yeah. Xavier, what about yourself?
Aliens was probably like after high school. I think, I don't know this exactly, but I think it was like around the time that Prometheus was coming out because I never saw Aliens.
Wow. Okay.
And so everyone kept talking about Prometheus, and I was like, oh, maybe I should watch the first one before watching this one. So I watched it, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I remember, I think this and The Thing were the two movies where I was like, wow, movies, before 1990 are actually good. So I was like, this movie's amazing. And just very creative with, having the acid blood, because I know Deadpool posted the clip in the chat. So, with the acid blood being, that's extremely creative. And I actually watched it again today, and I was like, yeah, this movie still holds up, still real scary. I absolutely really like it.
It's funny. I want to go ahead and move on to Josh and Vanny's, their first viewing exposure and what that was like for them. But interesting from hearing from you, Deadpool and Osnick and Xavier, is like there is I can already sense. I don't know, maybe because I'm 30 now, but I see that generational divide where people like, oh yeah, I didn't watch this movie until like my 20s, or I learned that like movies, before 1990 something can be good. That's really funny to hear. I kind of love that hearing that perspective. It's very interesting to me. Joshua, my sweet baby broccoli eating boy. Now I want to ask Josh, have you ever seen Alien?
I have seen Alien.
Oh my God, there we go. What was your first viewing experience like? Your exposure to this film?
I saw it when I was younger, but totally captivated. Alien to me is one of my top 2 horror movies ever. Really kind of depends on what mood I'm in between that and the original Halloween. Like if I'm gonna point someone in the direction of like that's a horror movie, done right, Alien is right up there at the top.
Nice. What about you, Vanny? What was your first viewing experience like?
First off, I'm going to say you're all children to me. You being the resident old guy here, and just say like before the.
No, I was just gonna say I'm actually the same age as Revan, but I just never watched older movies. I was just
interested. I think that's cool.
Yeah, but I'm also like 8 years older than the oldest person under second place here. So it's just you're all
okay. That's true.
Whippersnappers. You all need to get the fuck off my lawn. I'm gonna go watch the Golden Girls and golf. Oh my God.
Old man Vanny.
I love the Golden Girls.
Yeah, Golden Girls
my
is
favorite
pretty
Betty
good.
White. She's the best Golden Girl.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, just as a heads up for you, Revan, since yesterday was your birthday, which again, happy birthday again.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
As you get older, Betty White will stop going from she's funny to like, damn, she's kind of like, I'm getting it now. I'm feeling it.
Sure, of course. There's something about her. She's
she's
has that attraction. Yeah, she is.
But in terms of the rest of the group, I'm actually probably the farthest behind in that my first watch of this was no joke 1 hour ago.
Really?
Wow.
That's awesome. That's great.
I was kind of putting all of my eggs in the you're going to choose Scream bucket and never bothered to check Patreon again to see like, well, which movie is going to be. And it was, you said Alien. It's like, shit. So that's why I know that it's on Amazon Prime for $4 to rent it, because that's exactly what I did. So I've only seen the first 40-ish minutes of this movie.
Okay.
And
interesting.
Yeah. But that being said, though, I have read all the Wikipedia articles about the films, and I have an understanding of the film in and of itself because there's been enough clips of this too. I think if you ever watch any sort of horror documentary or, the greatest films of all time sort of things, Alien usually pops up on there too. And there's always going to be a discussion about like the big chest burster scene too, the xenomorphs, all the technical stuff behind the scenes of it. So I have a fairly decent working knowledge of the film without actually having completely seen the film. But from the first like 30 to 40 minutes that I've seen, hot damn.
Yeah. It's funny how you've kind of you know about the film, not even having seen all of it, just because of it being in the pop cultural zeitgeist for the past
like
40 over 40 years now.
Yeah,
over 40 years now, which is crazy to think that's how old this film is, and so many aspects of about it still hold up, although dated to maybe a certain extent in some scenes. Actually, I want to hear from you first, just kind of like in a bit, like after I'm just kind of going over like what I think affected me most about the film, because being someone who has seen it so recently. But like one of the things that always stands out to me, I mean, there's a lot of aspects about this film that we're going to get in and discuss. Everything from just the score, how the film opens up. The cast with Sigourney Weaver or Tom Skerritt or John Hurt or Ian Holm. A wonderful cast, I think, and they've played very grounded, realistic characters to the creature itself and H.R. Geiger's designs. But the thing that just really kind of speaks to me about the movie, and I think really just sets the mood for me, is the aesthetic, is the setting. People, I think, often forget, or they underappreciate, I think, sometimes, where when you think like of a sci-fi aesthetic, even like in the 70s, or let's say even before Star Wars, like it was always very clean. We always think of like something like Star Trek, where the future was always going to be very bright. But what I liked about Star Wars, and Star Wars obviously had an impact on Ridley Scott, where he wanted to emulate that very dirty, gritty, lived-in future, and he looked at Star Wars and said, "I can make that scary." And I think that's what I really love about this movie. It's how it opens up, because we have Jerry Goldsmith's amazing score. And we have like the logo come in very slowly until it reveals Alien. But I like how we spend really the first 3 minutes of the movie just exploring the ship, the Nostromo, which is one of my favorite just like fictional places I think ever, especially in sci-fi and horror. This Leviathan-sized ship. And we go through each and every single corridor. We go through the hallways. Everything feels like it's covered in grease or it's just wet. You have like all those grates everywhere. And like when you go into these rooms that were like supposed to be Star Trek-esque, supposed to be like this stark white color, but have yellowed and browned over, and it just feels like this. Many people of many generations have been in this ship and used this ship and lived here. And I just really love the world that Alien showcases, even before we get to the monster, even before we get to LV-426. It's that future that almost feels dystopian. It kind of is, because this is also set in the same world as Blade Runner. They share the same universe, which I think is really interesting. And so it's just that initial like look into the world of Alien that I just love and appreciate, and how we see it, throughout the entire film, and things, go from bad to even worse to, apocalyptic. I love it. I mean, Vanny, when you first, you just watching this movie, what did you think of the setting, the aesthetic of the film?
That's what honestly drew me into it as well. Like, I love the slow burn for it, and it's not only it's kind of a nice juxtaposition of, or contradiction of, like, just how wondrous that space is. Because again, at this time, we've had Star Wars, we've had 2001: A Space Odyssey, we've had even like the more campier stuff at this point, like Flash Gordon, and now you're seeing something that's going to be a lot just kind of like darker, and almost like when you see something as amazing as like the ship that the cast is in. But you also see a lot of boring stuff too. Like you see like little like quasi like hula like toy kind of things around there, and you see like a coffee mug right in the very beginning too, and you see just all this kind of more like drab stuff for it. Like it's kind of giving like the audience like this indication, like, hey, you're gonna see a different version of space. Like you're gonna see it where it's almost like what would be missed or amazing for us is kind of boring to the cast.
Mm-hmm.
Like the very first scene you see of the humans is like they're in their pods, they wake up, and as you see John Hurt just kind of waking up and just like he's bored already. Like, God, let's just get through this shit.
It's that, and it's also, I'll let you finish your thought, but it's like they're kind of like just regular people. Like they're not all pretty. I mean, yes, Sigourney Weaver, of course, is incredibly attractive, but she's not she's not done up. She doesn't have makeup or anything like that. I mean, she has her hair tied, in a bun behind her neck, or just puts on this grease covered overalls and everything. Everyone just feels very real.
Right.
And I love that about it.
They're intergalactic truck drivers is what they are. And that's one of the things I really am kind of enjoying. It's almost kind of like an antithesis to 2001, where it is like, look at the spectacle, look at how amazing all this looks. And you hear like that iconic music that when the dudes are like running around in the giant circle, which is also visually, again, stunning, insanely boring. And instead of like having that kind of pomp and circumstance, you have it much more of just like, where I kind of imagine what space travel will eventually be like, whereas right now it's like reserved for like astrophysicists and chemists and like scientists and Elon Musk for some fucking reason. And at some point, space travel is going to be a lot more common, and you're going to have the equivalency of a truck driver and just a bunch of roughnecks, and that's what this is too. So it really is just kind of spitting in the face of like Kubrick almost at this point, because this came out a few years later. And by just having it look so grimy yet boring at the same time, and I think this, like to your point, like the aesthetics and just how dingy and grimy it all looks is also kind of say like, yeah, in all reality, as much as we want to idolize like space travel, it's also going to be probably really boring, and you're going to be more concerned about like the stuff that you see in the first few minutes of the film, where they're talking more about like their bonus structures and like just not giving a shit the fact that they're in space. Like they're just like, who cares? Like this is like we're going down I-5 right now. I don't really give a shit.
I want to touch on the dynamic that the cast has in their conversations, because I think it's very interesting. It's unlike a lot of sci-fi films of the time. Yeah. You have any additional thoughts before I move on?
I can also absolutely appreciate right now too of just the horror aesthetic that they are setting up too, because again, like right from the very beginning of just like the slow crawl of the title screen for Alien, and then kind of cutting through everything too, it has this ominous feel to it already, but then also mixed in with just like, again, like a mixture of the mundane with the fantastical. So it does kind of do a lot of really great visual storytelling with very little things to actually see. Like you're seeing the environments and you're seeing like kind of like there's setting up the world, but you're actually not seeing anything really happen until like the first screen pops up. And I think to your earlier point of like what starts to get dated, I think it's the problem you run into a lot of like the sci-fi films from the 70s and 80s, where what they imagine like the future tech is going to look like is already out of date by like 1990.
This is very much the 70s version of what they thought the future was going to look like. Yeah,
exactly. And it still works. So I think it's one of those things you can absolutely forgive that for, because at the time that's what you kind of thought. That's like kind of like the Jetsons sort of mentality. But it still absolutely works. And I think even now it just kind of adds on to like, I think with modern sensibilities of like if you're going to be like a roughneck, if you're going to be kind of like now working for like a larger corporation now too, where it's like kind of like, I guess whatever, like that sort of mentality, that's who you're kind of sort of hire now too. Like Harry Stanton sort of kind of characters. You're not going to spring for like the uber fancy, like this ship's brought to you by Apple. You're going to get the cheapest Walmart brand software, and it might still look like it was something made back in the 1970s too. So I think that's one thing that while it can appear dated, it's also kind of timeless too, because like you're also kind of talking about like corporate greed and cutting corners. An evil, like a company that doesn't really give a shit about their people, they're going to give you low tech. They'll give you just enough to get the job done, and that probably is going to be something that's going to be from the 1970s.
That's a good point, and you're right. It's like this is very much a future where we've mastered space travel, and now we could give a shit less about it. The magic is gone. So yeah, very good point. Josh, what about you? Do you have like an appreciation for the setting and the aesthetic, or what particular thing stands out for yourself?
Of course. I mean, I really appreciate the filthiness of it, because it does stand out against the utopias of the traditional science fiction. But what I think serves the horror well is the everyman type of dynamic with the characters, because it's like, okay, these people also hate their job and they work for the man and they just want to cash their check and go home like everybody else does, and it sort of just immediately grounds you in the world and makes it feel more real. Yeah. Which I think serves the tension from the horror later on.
Agreed.
Very well.
Yep. Totally agree. Go ahead, Vinny.
No, so they're roughnecks. No one's a hero here. They're all just they just want to get paid and go home.
Yeah, what it is just they're just the wrong people caught in the worst possible situation. Like, they're not prepared for something like this, and they were manipulated to being there, which is interesting. What about you, Xavier? What do you think about the setting and the overall aesthetic of the movie?
I really liked it. I liked that in the first, in the beginning of the movie, that it really just explores what this area looks like. And it kind of looks like, like everyone's been saying, it looks dirty, it looks grimy, but it kind of looks like, a prison, or it looks like somewhere like you're trapped in it. But I thought one thing that stood out to me was that when they go into the room with Mother, how it looks so different compared to everything else in the ship. How it's brighter. It seems more, I don't want to say homey, but it just looks completely different from the rest of the ship. It looks like almost like a safe place, maybe.
On both of your points, I'm actually glad you brought two of those things up. One, the prison. I can see that, because one of the things that always appealed to me about the Nostromo, or at least made me go I would never want to be there. This is a nightmare scenario. Is that the Nostromo? It feels like just this Leviathan-sized spacecraft where it's filled with so many tunnels and so many hallways. I mean, we see it at one point in the film when Dallas is tracking this thing in the ventilation systems. It's like, how many fucking tunnels are on this thing? And it feels so claustrophobic. And yeah, I could totally see just getting the sense that this is, it literally is it becomes a prison for them, where they have to stay inside because they can't leave. They can't escape into space because then they'll die. And so it's literally become a prison. You have the most dangerous prisoner imaginable on board with them that wants to kill them or breed with them or do whatever they you could possibly imagine. And on your point about Mother, I agree. That's the one where it's filled with, it's all white, or has that yellow kind of look to it. It has all the Christmas lights and things. And it does feel like a little homey. And I wonder if maybe that's on purpose, where that's why they call it Mother. It's supposed to be comforting. That's where they go to get all the answers. That's where Dallas initially goes to get the answers. Like, why were we suddenly all, woken up to go check on this thing? And that's where Ripley goes and finds answers later on. She goes to Mother, who's supposed to be this kind of all-knowing AI figure who's supposed to give him all the answers. Although, as we know, that doesn't happen. So no, two very good points. Oscar, what about you? What about the aesthetic or the setting worked for you or doesn't work for you?
I think Austin said he'll be right back.
Okay, all right, no problem. Well, Deadpool, if you want to go ahead and go into it. What about the setting and aesthetic for you? Did you like or dislike?
Well, I'm probably going to reiterate a lot of the points that were made, like because it has that sort of that futuristic but realistic lived-in feeling to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost everything's believable.
Yeah,
Like
I
you
agree.
could see that. Like if you walk in this ship, you were like, yeah, this makes total sense. Like even though it is kind of dated, which I mean at this point, like the aesthetic of Alien is so iconic. It reminds me of Fallout in a way where it's almost like its own alternate future.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, that's a very good point. It is what people in the 1970s thought the future in the I forget when this movie specifically takes place. I think it's like the 2100s. I want to say it takes place a significantly long time. In the future, but it's what they thought, and I really like that aesthetic too. Even though it's like now because everything is touch screens and holograms. Like when we think of a lot of sci-fi movies, what we think is everything's a touch screen, everything's something that pops up or it's a hologram or something. That's why it's so weird in the newer Alien films, even though they take place in the past, like Prometheus and Covenant, that everyone's using a touch screen, everyone's speaking via hologram. It's like that's not what the aesthetic was of the original movies in any capacity. It's the prequel problem. So. No, you're right. I just love that 70s look, and it's dated, but it still works for the movie. It still makes sense for the world that they intended to create. Austin, we were talking about just our general feelings on the setting and the aesthetic of the movie. Do you have any other thoughts on it, or just want to mention something that you really like about it?
I'm just like I have it open quietly. I really like all the ship models, like just how things look. Like there's something really nice about a ship that doesn't look like a ship from another movie. If that, like, they don't look like the circular UFO, or it doesn't look kind of like a NASA rocket.
Yeah,
it has like a distinct flavor to it that I think kind of sets it apart.
One of the things that I really like how the movie opens, and to your point, where they use a lot. Like this is all models. This is pre CGI, of course. There's a lot of models. There's a lot of matte paintings. This is a lot of change, like kind of camera manipulation. Make things appear larger than they actually are. I love the opening film where we see, because a lot of people, the Nostromo is like a ship, but that thing that's being pulled behind it is like this giant refinery, and it has like these spires like sticking up into the air, into the sky, and it looks really creepy. It looks like the Nostromo is literally dragging a Gothic castle behind it, which is really cool to me. Which, yeah, you're right. We just haven't really seen that. And we still don't really see that in science fiction. We don't see a spaceship tugging or carrying a giant medieval Gothic castle behind it. It stands out. I mean, I'm sure there's been other things in fiction that obviously have been inspired by Alien. They've done that, but we don't often see that in a lot of media. And so, that's a huge one. I love the designs. I just love the ship designs, both in this one and in the sequel, Aliens, with the Sulaco and things. But yeah, that's why the Nostromo is like one of my favorite ships in just sci-fi, because I just love the utilitarian look of it and how large it is and all of its hallways and things. Yeah, go ahead.
It kind of reminds me of, this is gonna be kind of a weird off-base thing, but like Robot Chicken had this one of the Star Wars specials where they were doing like the take on Return of the Jedi, where the Emperor's talking to Luke and he's trying to give like the big speech, but then you start hearing construction noises in the background, and then you start to see the Emperor has to go talk to the construction workers, and you see like, look here, Mr. like Mr. Palpatine or whatever you are, like if you want to get this done by Thursday, we're gonna get some parts in here down from Michigan. That's gonna take at least another 3 days if I order today, which I probably won't. Like it just kind of has that like nice like juxtaposition of you're getting just regular schmoes, and so like it just kind of like feeds into the everything else of it. Like you're just getting a bunch of like there's like, as much as you like to see like the elaborate stuff, like like in here, like you're like they're a tugboat is what it is at the end. Of the day. Like I was using trucks, but it's a tugboat. But like you kind of imagine like the like when you see like other sci-fi films when there's already like a giant castle somewhere or a giant space station or a giant whatever. It doesn't just form organically. Somebody had to go build that. And it's almost like the slice of life for these guys, for the people who never get the credit for what's due, which is like the boring logistical bullshit that would come with all the grand elaborate stuff. And I can appreciate that this film it's almost kind of like saying like, hey, don't forget about the little guys, otherwise you can't get your cool shit.
I even know. I think I know what the scene you're thinking of too. Is like when Yaphet Kota's character Parker and Harry Dean Stanton's character of Brett are talking about how we're gonna need like 19 hours to fix this, and it's like I cannot imagine just how intimidating. I mean, it feels like they like, yeah, we can do it, but it's gonna take all this time, and it's like to be in that situation, I'd be so nervous and so anxious. Like I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
It's so intimidating, but for them, it's like, oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we got it. It's gonna take this long.
Yeah,
and I love that.
Yeah, it'll be here. It'll be ready by Thursday. I said Thursday. It'll be here by Thursday. Calm down, sir. Kind of thing. Like it's just like there's just so bitter, and I think that's like as the film starts to get into more like the science fiction, like slash horror elements for it too. It really does become for them so much more of a fish out of water, and they're just going like it's almost kind of imagine like if your mechanic now how to fight Dracula. It's kind of that kind of feel like somebody who's so completely ill prepared for this go up against something so monstrous, and they're so fucked.
Yeah,
And-
no, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I want to add something to Vanny's point.
Go ahead.
I think that kind of adds a familiarity to the movie. Like we see all these mundane things that we can relate to. You know, they're complaining about their jobs, they're drinking coffee. You know, they're talking about having to work long hours, and like they're not the prototypical sci-fi action hero. You know, they're not Captain Kirk or Leslie Nielsen in Forbidden Planet. You know, the military captain. Like these are just random workers who are just kind of thrown into this situation and are literally clawing at their fingers to survive.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's what works so well about the film is that it gave us a look into a scenario that maybe we're familiar with, but with characters who are not used to handling something like this, which I think is really cool. Any other last points anyone wants to make about the aesthetic, about the movie or the setting? Like I will say, you know, I do love that this I mean, it's very much a dystopian corporate future where, you know, who even knows like what the world government's like. We don't really know what the world government looks like in both in Blade Runner and in Alien, because they both share the same world. Because it feels like it's all taken over by corporation, like the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. You know, it's always looked up as the model is like, hey, you want to, this is what you need to have for a corrupt corporation. They need to not give a shit about their employees. They need to constantly dabble in things they're just fully unprepared for. But I just love this world. So it's like, yeah, we have these regular people and they're going to get paid and everything like that. But I just love this corporate controlled world. It's like it's the worst thing possible. I really love that. And I love also just the LV-426, the planet itself, this planetoid, which is devoid seemingly of all life, but it just has these massive spires in terms of like, it's like they're like mountains, but it's almost like a meteor hit. And they like, and the rocks have just jutted out and they're so spiky and sharp. Like it's such an unforgiving looking world. I don't know if anyone had any other points about maybe like the setting itself, this corporate controlled environment, or maybe the LV-426 itself.
I think you got it.
I got it. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Actually, Vanny, I'm actually glad you started mentioning, both you guys, Deadpool and Vanny, started talking about the cast and the characters. Obviously, you know, we have a number of fantastic actors. You know, Sigourney Weaver. This was the movie that made her career. This is what put her on the map, playing Ellen Ripley. I mean, she continued playing the character for several sequels. But I mean, we have Sigourney Weaver, we have Tom Skerritt and Yaphet Kotto and Harry Dean Stanton and Veronica Cartwright and Ian Holm and John Hurt. And as you said, Vanny, and everyone else has been saying, it's just these are just a collection of these kind of blue collar people. They're just there to do their jobs. You can get a sense that they have their own little cliques. Like, I really love about it. And they all have like these inane conversations. You're right. Boring conversations that we would all have in our ordinary life, like office conversations, you know, where you have the Brett and Parker character where they're very close. You get that sense. They've done this a lot. Where, you know, they're always talking about their bonus situation. You have it where they like even small things in the beginning where you see like Ian Holm sits down at the table, but Yaphet Kotto's like, that's my seat. And he like, yeah. And then, you know, Ian Holm, he gets up and Yaphet Kotto sits down. He continues his conversation with Harry Dean Stanton. It's like those little moments, like they have a relationship. Not all of them like each other, clearly. Ellen, she's kind of like Ellen Ripley. She's kind of a bit of a hard ass. She's a much better relationship with someone like Dallas, Tom Skerritt's character. But you do get a sense of everyone's relationship, of course, with the exception of Ian Holmes' character, obviously, because he is a new member of the crew. But is there like just kind of we can freely talk about any of these characters, but I'll start with you, Deadpool. What characters did you like really connect with, or did you really like? In particular, is there a particular like moment between characters you would just want to point out and mention?
There is one I was literally just thinking about, how Parker's relationship with Ripley changes throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
How at first you get a feeling that he doesn't really care for her, that he's like, oh, she's always on my case, wish she would just back off. Then and as the members of the crew start dropping like flies, and it's just Parker, Ripley, and I can't remember the other woman's name.
Oh, that's Lambert, played by
Lambert.
Veronica Cartwright. Yeah.
Yeah, when it's just them, you definitely sense there's sort of like Parker and Ripley kind of have like a mutual respect for each other.
Yeah.
So you definitely see their relationships as they're going through this experience change slightly.
You're right. I mean, once the crew starts to whittle down, as each member is either taken by the alien or killed. Yeah, I mean, you have that survivalist mentality. Nothing brings people closer together than tragedy. And it's like we have to put all of our shit to the side and just work on getting on here. I love that.
I was gonna mention what Deadpool brought up about the mutual respect. I feel like that happened at the scene where I think it's where Dallas got captured, and I think Parker's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill this guy. I'm gonna kill this guy," and then Whippy's like, "Let's calm down for a second." Like in any other movie, they would have had a big drawn out scene and had the swirling music, but here it was like it almost felt like it was just two cast members talking, and again that goes to the point of just them feeling like real people.
No, I agree. Like all the dialogue between them it's very conversational. Like how the movie opens up after they get out of their cryopods and they're just discussing things. There's even like Ridley Scott encouraged the actors just to come up with their own conversations while making the movie. There's actually like a 4-hour version of Alien out there because they have so much dialogue, and he just took the best bits, the stuff that he thought worked the best between certain characters and kept it in there. I just really love that. What about you, Osnick? Is there is there a certain character you attach yourself to, or like a moment with a character you thought was like really cool?
I'm trying to think.
We can go back to you in a bit.
I think I really do appreciate Ian Holm, maybe because he is now gone. But even if you look back at his films and look back at this, I do wonder if it's one of those things where he knew he was a robot and no one else knew in the script. Mm-hmm. So it would actually be a kind of surprise. But I don't know. But I think he plays the odd man out to the group. And I think what's so smart is that they set up, an android being evil, and then they kind of follow up with that in the next one. With
Bishop's character. Mm-hmm. No, I really like Ian Holmes' performance as Ash. Who is he is the new member of the Nostromo of the crew. He's a new crew member. He's the doctor, which is interesting because he's the one that you're supposed to rely on in the worst scenario. He's the one that is like, okay, you have the most knowledge. You have the medical expertise to help us out in the situation, and yet at the end of the day, he's the one who is evil. He's the one who is the most corporate. I mean, he's a robot. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what he is. He's like, I perform this one service, and this one service needs to get done, and everyone else is expendable. His relationship and just the dissolving his relationship with the rest of the crew is really interesting to watch. There's like small things about his performance that I think is like really cool. And one that apparently influenced the Alien franchise for years. Like there's this one moment I really like with him where he's kind of getting psyched up and he does this like little jog in place. And that was like an improv from Ian Holm. Like, I gotta get ready as they're landing on LV-426. And they've taken that little jog that he does in place and have used it like in Alien Isolation. And that's what all the androids do. It's these small things. I mean, he has my favorite line in the movie, when they're like, what is about this creature that you respect? And he's like, I admire its purity. Like, I love that. when it's revealed. I mean, the one again, it's like I love the idea that they're having a conversation with a severed head in his body, but there's that one awful fucking shot where it's very much a paper mache head, and they do that quick cut, and it's like, just you didn't need to do that. You didn't need to show the paper mache head. You could have just totally done that scene where he's already there, and you just start talking to him, which is so awkward. But I still love that conversation, and I really just I love his character because of how ominous. Even like in the shot in the trailer, because even the movie itself. I just think of the trailer because that one scene where you see that fucking droplet of milk. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with him? When you see that, when he's freaking out and he's trying to kill Ripley later on the film, and you see that droplet of milk, it's like, is he infected by the alien? Is there something else inside of him? You don't know until finally his fucking head gets knocked off by Parker later on. It's like, Jesus. And he's just like vomiting milk up. It's such a chaotic, scary scene. You don't know what's going on in a movie where you have no idea where this other monstrous creature is on the ship. So I really love that. Looks like we lost Josh, but M. Xavier, is there like a particular character moment or like certain characters that you really liked or a dynamic that appealed to you?
So I think my favorite character was definitely Parker.
Mhm.
I just love that, like at every moment in the beginning, he was just like, "Hey, what about the money? What about the bonus?" And he's just, and like even when they have to, they find out what their new task is. He's like, I'm not getting paid for this, and then he's like, "Oh, well, I guess I gotta do it." So I really just like Parker. I actually did not like Ripley at one point because Ripley is just all about the books. She's like, it's not protocol, it's not quarantine. There was something else that I think she mentioned that was like not a part of the rules. But yeah, I really didn't like Ripley at one point. But obviously she grew on me, and so now she's one of my favorites. But yeah, Parker, really liked Parker. Didn't like Ripley at one point.
I'm actually glad you brought that up in regards to Ripley not liking her, because I think that might have been the point. That's what really Scott, because he wanted to throw people off, where that she would be the final survivor. Because I don't think even Sigourney Weaver gets top billing in this movie. It's Tom Skerritt. Where, yeah, she is kind of the hard ass. She is kind of the one, like, we got to follow the rules. We have to quarantine. I mean, she was right. In hindsight, she was right about quarantine. And she was right to not be very trusting of Ash. But I think that was on purpose to throw us off. There's in the director's cut of Alien, because I don't know if you guys saw, you probably saw the theatrical version, but the director's cut to even further emphasize, everyone, like the crew's dislike of Ripley. There's this one scene when Dallas and Ash are about to trying to get the facehugger off of Kane's face, off of John Hurt's face. And before that, you have Parker and you have Brett and Lambert watching, and then Ripley comes up to watch with them, and fucking Lambert goes up to her and slaps the shit out of her. Just goes that it's not in the theatrical version. Apparently, that was improvised too. Or Ridley Scott told Veronica Cartwright to go up and hit Sigourney Weaver to like sell the scene and to show that distrust in the crew and their anger at her about the whole quarantine situation. And just for the emphasis of how much they don't like her. So yeah, no, I think I think a lot of people when they first watch this, you're not supposed to like Ripley, even though you realize, oh shit, she's fucking right the whole time. Should have kept Kane outside. Vanny, what about yourself, man? Is there particular characters that you really liked, or a dynamic, or a certain scene between them that really appealed to you?
So it's the opposite of Xavier. Like, I really liked Ripley for that very fact that she is going against the horror tropes of, like, I think there's always the idea of like, let's all split up and see if we can figure out what's going on. Like, that's a terrible fucking idea. Like, she's the smartest one to say, like, if this thing gets in and it's a virus, a monster, a whatever, a Babadook, I don't give a shit. It's going to kill us all. I'm sorry. No, like, it's a smart character. And I think it's one of the reasons why Ripley has endured for so long. And even like having a couple of bad Alien installment films for too, why she's still so damn iconic is that she's smart.
Yes.
And just because you're smart doesn't mean you have to be likable. And you end up liking her as a result of the fact of because of her intelligence. And she's rough too. Like, she's not, it's kind of, again, going against the idea of like a damsel in distress sort of mentality for it too. Or she didn't survive because she's, the purest of a heart. It's like, no, she survived because she's the smartest one. And I really, really like, I think Sigourney Weaver is absolutely an amazing actress. She's done a lot of really great films for it too. But this is one of those films where, like, again, this is why she is so defined by this and why she's become a sci-fi sort of icon. Like, she plays an intelligent character doing intelligent things for it too, at least for the first two films. And it just like I absolutely connected with her for that too. As a side note for it too, just because I don't think enough people talk about them. Harry Dean Stanton just in general is just a great character actor.
Yes.
And
Agreed.
I like posthumously, I think he's been getting a bit more credit. Like especially right after he passed away, people were just kind of recognized like, God, he was really good. He never got the praise that he should have throughout his entire career, and he was like plays such a great everyman. And especially seeing him here in Alien 2, where again you have roughnecks dealing with a monster, and he's just kind of like, "Fuck, I don't know."
Yeah, it's what most people would probably be. I mean, yeah, you're right about Harry Dean Stanton's entire career. He was known for playing guys who were just intelligent but exasperated. Like I also think of his role in the original in Escape from New York, where he plays Brain, who is in this prison and is at the is working much to his own chagrin for like the Duke of New York, but also striking a deal with Snake Plissken, trying to do what's right by him and his partner, his lover. He's great at playing those kind of characters. You're right, he was underappreciated for his time.
Yeah, very much so for it too. And yeah, I just like the guy. And he's kind of like an Abe Vigoda, where even when he was like in his younger years, he's always looked 900 years old.
He's always looked old. Yeah, he's like, you are mortal, but you're gonna look like you're 75 for most of your life. This is how it is. There are some other people I wanted to bring up. I actually really have an appreciation for Tom Skerritt's character of Captain Dallas. I mean, he's the leader of the Nostromo, but there's a certain sadness about him and in his performance where it almost, again, this is my own headcanon, but I really do feel like he was at one point, like he served in a war or something. And he's suffering from PTSD. Maybe he was in the Colonial Marines, and he took this job, and he's been doing this for so long. And because there's like that one moment, and in this one scene, maybe I could be just reading into it, but it's just how I feel, like where he isolates himself from the rest of the crew a lot, and where he goes into the escape ship, and he just listens to classical music by himself. There's just something about that I just thought was like very sad. Like he seems like a very lonely character. They originally were going to have a romance between Ripley and Dallas. There's actually stills. I don't think you can find footage, but there are stills online of them having like sex or like they're kissing in bed or something. But that was not in the film. It wasn't put in. It might have been in like Ridley Scott's original like 4-hour cut of the movie. But he always just and I do get maybe, and I think that maybe like Ripley recognized that sadness in him because they're in command. I think like the command structure. It's Ripley, it's Kane, John Hurt's character, and then her. Or Dallas. It's Dallas, Kane, and then Ripley. But I feel like she has that special connection to Dallas, maybe because she knows what he's gone through. But I just really like that intimacy between them. Even when she goes to confront him and she's being very blunt with him. I like that about the relationship. The Lambert character, Veronica Cartwright, she has the important job, I think, in the movie of being the audience. She is the audience avatar. She's the one that's constantly scared. Like I feel like I would be the Lambert in this situation. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I want to go home. She's always the one like, no, let's not do this, please. I don't want to go. I don't want to be the one to go out to the planet. I want to go on there. So she's always worried. She's always fucking smoking and stuff because of her anxiety. And so even though she doesn't play like a character maybe you might not like or you want to be with, it's like she still plays a very ground realistic character who's like, I want to get the fuck out of here. I'm scared. I really like that. And like the only person I really feel who kind of gets a shafted to a degree, but he has a very important role in the film is John Hurt as Lieutenant Kane in the movie. And I mean he's there. He's set up to die. That's his role. But he gets probably one of the most iconic moments in sci-fi horror with the birth. I want to talk about the alien a bit, but it's like he doesn't get a lot to do in terms of like interaction with certain characters. You don't really understand his dynamic with everybody else. And funny enough, I think John Hurt was a last-minute replacement because they had another actor who was actually filming the beginning, but he was like deathly ill on like the first day of filming, and he was replaced. This actor was replaced with John Hurt, but not to say he does a bad job. I mean, his entire scene where he does give birth, quote unquote, is incredible. But I just wanted to mention those other characters and give them the respect that they deserve. Any other last minute things that you guys want to bring up in terms for the characters that really appealed to you or stuck out to you, or maybe even didn't work for you?
I do like, which I think someone mentioned, the sort of the bait and switch between Captain Dallas and Ripley. Like immediately, most typical sci-fi movies, the fearless captain is going to be the hero. So, and his name and his name is Captain Dallas. So he has just a awesome like sci-fi captain name.
It is, yeah.
And you think he's going to be the hero for a good chunk of the movie, and then halfway through, he gets killed or taken, as whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then it just completely switches gears to Ripley.
Yeah. Then she becomes the de facto leader.
And it's interesting. I think I've read before that originally in the script they didn't have a gender in mind for most of the characters.
That's right. You're correct.
So like they basically wanted to try to cast who would fit the character best, regardless of gender. So Ripley could have been a man, woman, or didn't matter.
Yes.
So it's just kind of interesting seeing how like we're led to believe this typical sci-fi trope of the fearless captain, and then we just get the rug pulled out from under us, and it just completely switches gears to Ripley.
I really like the idea. I'm glad you brought it up that they wrote the characters and they can be played by any gender, really any race too. Like even like Parker, he doesn't necessarily need to be black. To you don't necessarily need to cast a black man or anything like that. Or I mean, you could have had a black lady. I really like that how they like all these characters. They could literally be you could have anybody play them, and it's and the thing that works about them is that they're well written and they feel real. That's the thing. And then you can go ahead and you cast who's best. I love that. That's a very important thing about this movie.
And that was a big deal at the time for, having Ripley as a female hero, having Parker, a black man in a sci-fi setting, which you didn't really get that much of in other movies. Like he got a lot of praise for playing that role, which is not typically a role you would see a black actor in.
No, you're right. You're right. And even though he does not make it, he lasts a long time. He's not the first one to die, we'll say. Any other kind of last minute things you guys want to mention about the characters?
I think one thing also is kind of worth pointing out too is besides the fact of like the diversity and all that stuff too, is also their ages too. These are also like I think compared to other horror films for it. And I'm not saying this as the resident old guy here, but it's just these are also all very mature people too. There's not like the young kid, I think that you see. I think it's one of the other sequels is when like a small child's introduced into the film, but I think it's part 2 has it or 3 has the kid.
Aliens has a child.
In it. Yeah, like these are all grown ass adults for it too, and I don't really think that you see a whole lot of horror films like this where you have people who are like look like they're set in like they're at the very youngest would probably be like in their 30-ish kind of range, all the way up through like Tom Skerritt, who's actually like I just looked up at the photos of him. That dude like has aged extraordinarily well for. But these are all like an older generation of folks like having to deal with this kind of stuff for it too. So like especially when you're going up against something like the Alien, there's kind of like the expectation, maybe like some physicality approach to like, we can knock it out or something. hit it with, let's go Gordon Freeman with a wrench on it or something like that. Like, no, these guys are like, they're going to be older too. They're not going to be like, even from a physicality standpoint, they can't take on the Alien. Like, so again, I think
Parker tries.
He
tries at one point.
Yeah.
But that's a good point, man. Keep going.
But I think to your earlier point too, between Ellen and to Dallas too, like where the respect is for too. I kind of think back again of like if you're in that workplace environment, you do have somebody like Dallas who is the captain who does keep himself distant for it too. I actually really like your idea that he was a colonial marine too, and out of the rest of the cast for it too, like Ripley is the one who's probably again because she's the most logical, she's like one of the more intelligent ones. I think that's why there is that mutual respect and admiration, possibly why they may have led to a romance at some point because they would connect. Is because between the two of them, you almost can kind of tell like she's meant to be almost like the assistant manager, almost like she's meant to be like not quite a peer, but as close as you could possibly get while still respecting rank for it too.
Yes.
And she's the one like she's like when everyone's complaining again about their pay. Like she's the one saying, like, calm your shit, guys. You're gonna get paid. Stop it. Like, yeah. I really like the fact that she's just that. It's part of that no nonsense mentality they have for her too, which I can understand to Deadpool's point of what you like. Not she meant to be liked, but it also for the environment they're into because they are older. It makes sense that you're gonna have sort of this kind of this sort of like dynamic relationship for it too. And why there would be like the rapport between the two because they're just like, let's just do it. Let's do the job. Let's get paid. Let's go home, and then you guys can do whatever you want. But
it's no, to your point, it's like they are mature, especially with Dallas and especially Ripley, and they're competent. You know,
Yep.
and they're like, we've done this time and time again. We're gonna get through this. So let's just do it. Yeah, and that's and to my point, you're right. Everyone looks like they're in their 30s or 40s. Even Harry Dean Stanton looks like he's always been 55. You know, he has that look. But
He's
it's
one-
like it's
one day
not
from
it's
retirement.
not a whole bunch of pretty people. Again, that's the thing I always go back to. It's like not to saying that these guys are ugly. They're not, but they
No.
just look real. The
Mhm.
like you can like if I were to do my own alien movie, I'd be like, I don't want to cast any pretty people. I want to cast someone who looks like some schmuck on the street. There you go. That's who you need to be in an alien movie.
Right.
Just some average person, because that's what
Yeah.
makes it work.
You can almost replace the space setting with anything else. It could have been like
Yeah.
they're out on sea and they're just kind of carrying something and they hear a distress call like from like a like an aquatic like lab or something like that. And you could almost still kind of take a lot of those same elements and then just put it in a real world setting, and you'd have more or less the same film. I think where it of course gets heightened is the fact that it is in space and it's a unique environment for it. So like the aesthetics absolutely deserve a lot of credit as well.
Yeah.
But the actual like core story, it's pretty universal.
It's what I love about the story is it's a survival story. It's very simple. It's straight to the goddamn point. We're just trying to survive the scenario that we're in, and that's why Alien works so well, and why Aliens work so well. And then when we get deeper in the franchise, that's when it stops working. That's when they start. I mean, that's when we get to Prometheus and Alien Covenant. It's like, well, it's about humanity and our origins and what is God and what's not. It's like, I don't give a shit. No,
Yeah.
What are you doing? Just keep it simple. Like, and this is something I want to hit on in a bit, because I want to move on to the Alien itself, which the movie is named after. I love it. Such a simple title. It's crazy to me that no one had named another alien sci-fi film Alien. That's like weird. I think even like famously the screenwriter Dan O'Bannon was like, no one ever named another movie Alien before. Holy shit! There's our title. It's like it's perfect in its simplicity. I love that. It's pure. I admire its purity. But of course, I think the most iconic thing about the movie itself, other than maybe Sigourney Weaver's Ripley, is the alien creature. And we have to think, like, yes, we've been exposed to this movie for 40 times. We've seen parodies of this for decades and everything. It's been done to death. We know about it. But you got to remember, like, in 1979, no one had seen something like this. Like, you got to think, like, only 20 years, before, like, this movie had come out, like, in the 50s, or 30, like, in the 40s. We get stuff like The Wolfman and The Creature in the Black Lagoon. So they go from that to this. It's incredible how much little time has passed, and you see something as horrifying as this. I just love it when we go to LV-426 and they're exploring this seemingly ancient star vessel, this starship. And like the first thing is that we don't even see the eggs. We don't even see the egg chamber or whatever that catacombs is. We see just the space jockey sitting in that chair. And we assume, like, the characters, like, we don't know what the hell this is. It looks mummified. Was it the pilot? Is it something else? We don't know. Like, these questions aren't answered in the movie at all. None of this is answered. We're just like, they just found something, and then something found us, and we have to react to it. And that's just in the back of our heads now. But I just love the idea. And I love speculating. Now, sadly, the movies have answered this question, and they've done it in the worst way possible, in a very dumb way, in my opinion. But I just love how we have these characters come upon this ancient vessel. They see this mummified thing, and they find this egg chamber. And it's like, what was this ship doing? What was its purpose? Are the aliens? Are they a biological weapon? Because that's what I assume. Are they a man-made? Are they an alien-made biological weapon? Is this like an infection? It's like, it's all these, you don't know. But when we first kind of come to the alien vessel with this giant U ship and the jockey, I guess for me, I just thought it was so cool, and just how like big it was. It was funny, they used some camera tricks and they used perspective tricks. Ridley Scott actually uses children in a lot of those wide shots of people in the spacesuits. So when you see them all walking around, those are actually kids, not the actual actors, which I think is quite funny. But has anyone any thoughts like on the initial reveal of the space jockey in the egg chamber? What do you think about that?
I think it's a great introduction to when you first, like, again, like we've been talking all this up to this point of just like how real the characters are, how just relatable they are, how they're older, all that other kind of stuff. And once you actually start seeing the alien stuff for too, that's where you start to get like the shock of it, Because everything up to this point, they've just made it seem almost boring. Like them docking for two, it's more of an engineering problem. Like you hear them talk about like their more boring kind of day-to-day lives about getting paid, and now you're finally getting to like the, oh yeah, like here's like the exact opposite of that is about to start happening right now, and you start seeing these character designs that work really really well too. And again, it just because it is so grounded at the same time, it makes the fantastical feel that much more too. And I think that's again one of the reasons why this film works so damn well is like. You've never seen anything like this before. I think one of your points is like we've never seen a film like this before because up until that point we've had like the Ed Wood kind of shit of like Plan 9 from outer space and almost like the destroy all humans sort of mentality. Like when you think of aliens, like they're going to be like little green men or it's like watch any Mr. Science Theater 3000 film that involves aliens. They look like us, but with like maybe like some spots on their forehead or something.
Yeah.
Or this is the first time where you see them as monsters and like terrifying ones too, not just like. Like the Captain Kirk, like somebody in a jumpsuit, like almost like Power Rangery.
Sure.
It's not a gorilla in like a bubble helmet,
like a robot monster or something like that. Yeah. But Osnick and Xavier Deadpool. I mean, any thoughts on like just the ship when they go to the ancient star vessel, the space jockey, the egg chamber, or the storage room? I mean, is there anything that like jumped out to you or appealed to you, thought was like unique? Or that you appreciate, or just thoughts, like any speculation, any theories? What do you think this is? What happened to this vessel?
I like the idea that we never found out, and they never did prequel movies. But I think that's what makes such a good question. It's like, is this just like an ancient species of like creatures that have like, and this is what they do? Is this like a military project that's gone wrong? Is this like some kind of bioweapon? I just like the idea of the mystery and. These characters are just kind of discovering upon it.
Yeah, right there with you.
Well, I'm in the same boat as you. Sorry.
No, you go, Deadpool.
I'm in the same boat as you guys where it works because it's simple. The moment you start over-explaining things is the moment you lose people. Because like it happens with Star Wars, happens with pretty much any sci-fi franchise or fantasy franchise. The moment you start over-explaining it, you're going to lose people because their headcanon's always going to be cooler than what the writers come up with. And that's where Aliens is kind of losing it. Like once you get into the prequel movies, it loses the aesthetic of everybody. Like it tries to explain questions that people rather not really know the answers to, or rather just speculate. And it just kind of really misses the mark because it over explains things and it loses that simplicity of what Alien and Aliens did.
I fully agree with you. It's to my earlier point, and you're just emphasizing it. It's just like Alien and Aliens works better when it's a survival story. It's simple. It's like you're following these characters that you do like or that you feel sorry for and caught in an awful situation. And yeah, you can have that stuff in the background. You can speculate and all these things. It's fun to speculate. It's fun to do our own little headcanons and we think like what this is and everything. But when filmmakers, and I should say all filmmakers, but when certain ones, they feel like, okay, now I'm going to tell you what actually happened. And it's like, oh, it's kind of disappointing, or it's not even well thought out, or it's like easy to poke holes in. And so it's just fun to speculate.
No. And I think that's why Alien Isolation, the video game, is probably one of the better sequels.
Yes,
or
agreed.
prequel. And honestly, if they make another movie, they should use that as the template. Just follow that story and make a movie or a series about it.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to do an adaptation about Amanda Ripley's daughter, which that's for those who are unfamiliar with it, the Alien Isolation follows the daughter of Amanda Ripley, where it's like, I think it's like maybe 15 years later, and she doesn't know where her mother went, and then you find out, and you play as her, and you encounter the alien creature, along with many other terrors, and it's great, yeah, and that again, they kept, like you said, it kept it simple. It's a survival story, and that's what worked about it.
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Osnick.
What's his name? Danny? Isn't Danny McBride in Colonial?
He's in Alien Covenant.
Covenant, right? I kept thinking of anyway. I had to wonder because he's in that movie and he's like, why don't they just do a soft reboot of this, get rid of all the bad movies and just go back to like from Alien 2 and just go like because he did Halloween. I'm like, he had to wonder that while he was in Alien Covenant.
Maybe that was part of his inspiration. I don't know, like, being involved in like a horror franchise. I know he's a horror fan, but he was. Listen, I'm not a fan of Covenant. I've talked about it before, but he was like one of the, and he's not even in the movie that much. But I liked him because he felt like the most grounded character. He felt like one of the characters in the original film. Again, he's not like he's not this good-looking action hero or something like that. He's not a pretty guy, but he has a personality. I like that he's the pilot of the ship, and for the little screen time that he got, I dug it. I dug him. He was one of the few exceptions to that movie. I thought, like, one of the few things that work well, I should say. But yeah, just to kind of get back to talking about the alien creature itself. Obviously, one last thing I wanted to make. One point, I thought it's interesting because they use a lot of old school camera tricks. Very simple. Where if you notice in the egg chamber where Kane, idiot, goes down into there, and he's looking at the eggs. You'll notice that moisture is rising up from them, which is very weird. And really, it's just a camera trick. They just reverse the footage to make it look like the moisture is going up, because it's like, what the hell is this? It's just so unique. We're not used to seeing that. So I really like that. And like we see the face hugger inside, and eventually, attaches to him, and you get a whole situation. It's like, what's this thing doing to him? And we get to that point in the movie. Well, I even like how the slow build, when we go up to like, okay, this thing's attached to him. Let's take it off. We can't take it off because it has acid blood. Okay. And it's eating through the hull of the ship. And so we can't even remove this, or we'll put ourselves all in danger. Like, I love that the escalation of the threat. Like, we're on the planet. This organism's now with us. It's attached to our friend, our coworker, whatever. And then eventually detaches, and he seems fine. And then we get to, I think, probably is one of the most, if not the most iconic moment in the film, which is the birth, where I love how it starts out, where it's that grounded, we're just having a conversation, we're having dinner, and then all of a sudden Kane starts, convulsing, yeah, chest pains, everything, and then like people don't know what's going on. They think he's choking. They have no idea. And you see that first shot of blood out of his chest, and then just this creature erupt from him, really give birth to it, and they're all in shock. Like, again, in 79, like, we've seen a lot of gory horror films for years, forever, long we've been on this earth. But for so many people that saw it the first time, it was like, I've never seen anything like this. It was horrifying. What did you guys think about the birth scene? What like everything from what it like led up to like the face hugger and into the moment where that thing bursts out of his chest, everyone's reaction? Because for me, that's like that when I think of a horror scene, that's when I think of like a scare moment in a movie, it's that one. That's when I always point to. That's an iconic moment. But if anyone wants to speak to it, like, how do you guys feel?
I think it's also important to know too that like not even the cast, except for John Hurt, knew how or what was going to happen. Like, their reaction for the chest burster is their first initial reaction to it, which is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It was only John Hurt knew about it. There's actually like deleted footage of Veronica Cartwright falling over, which is quite funny that they cut it out of the movie. But yeah, anyone else? How do you feel about that particular scene?
Yeah, I really like the scene. It kind of like is almost like a warning to what happens at the end. How just everything in this movie. Well, not everything, but like there are parts in the movie where everything just seems so calm. It's just like, oh, it's over. We don't have to worry about that anymore. And then, oh shit, here comes something else. So yeah, I just loved everything about it. Loved how everyone just felt so casual, and then all of a sudden that happened.
Deadpool, Austin, any thoughts?
No, you go, Deadpool.
Well, I mean, yeah, John Hurt wasn't the original actor, because I believe it was John Finch was supposed to play play him originally. He had to step out because he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and had bronchitis, a chest infection.
Damn! Oh, look at that.
The irony of it. He had to step down because of a chest infection.
That's fucking nuts.
I just want to point out the irony of that.
Perfectly cast.
Yeah, but like that scene, I mean, it's such iconic. Which I even posted the Spaceballs having John Hurt. Kind of parodied it. Yeah, it's just it's such an iconic scene, and like it really, like, the whole movie just kind of completely switches gears after that.
Yes, I agree with you.
But I like how though how even at that point, because one thing I was going to mention when you were talking about Dallas is, your explanation makes sense, because I felt like Dallas was too calm in a lot of the situations. Like, he just seemed like, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but like he just seemed very calm throughout this whole thing. He was just like, "Oh, well, I guess we gotta go through the vents and do this,
Yeah,
and we're
yeah.
gonna split into different teams." And yeah, so I just thought he was really calm, and I remember like after the scene how the thing just like scurries away and no one even noticed it. They're just like, we're too shocked.
I feel like with Dallas, it's like, okay, I think he is scared, but he has to be the captain. He has to be the leader people have to look up to, or at least people go to if they want like a sense of normalcy. It's like you need to like when you have that structure, you have a lot of people. You need to go to someone specific to like, okay, this is the things we need to do. This, and this. I think he was doing that because by the time he's in the vents, he's like, okay, I want to get out of here. It's like at that point, it's over. It's over for him. At least for the portion of the movie. And then of course, when we do see the chest burster and they're looking for this thing, and they make the choice to split up. But again, it's like, oh, why would you split up knowing what that thing's out there? But the thing's like it's small. It's this little thing, so I can kind of sense that like they're literally in the beginning they're chasing around. They have a net, like a fucking rope net, trying to wrangle this thing. That's the thing. It's like, okay, it's this thing killed our friend. It burst out of him, but it's this small little thing we're able to handle it. And I that's kind of like how I think why. Harry Dean Stanton's like, all right, man, just go get the fucking cat. Go get it. And that's when we first. And to me, this is such a terrifying scene, but it's so beautiful, especially the way it's shot. And like when Harry Dean Stanton, when Brett is looking for, and I just love the pacing of it. I love that there's no music. There's no music. Like the Jerry Goldsmith's score is beautiful, but I love how they chose not to use music in a number of scenes, and especially during Brett's search for the alien, for Jonesy the cat, for Ripley's cat, because they're trying to track it down, but they need to grab the cat because their sensor will keep getting confused. Their tracker will keep getting confused because we might be going for the cat, we're going for the alien creature. But I just love that he goes in this fucking storage area, which is filled with all this ancient looking equipment. And for whatever reason, the spaceship has a shit ton of water on it. Like, I was like, when he goes underneath those chains, which looks like hell itself, and he just lets that water fall on his head, I was like, I do not want that on me. But it's like, oh my God, it's so gross. And then you realize the thing it's up there. Like you see it, but it's in the chains and stuff. And I love that it's like slowly like moving back and forth, almost like in a Christ-like pose. And then when he's looking for it, and it slowly like curls down until it's in front of him. And you see that. Like, and the other thing about the alien, which I don't think we see this often in the other films at all, like anymore, is that the thing moves slow. The alien moves very slow. Like there's another shot later on in the film when it kills Lambert, or rapes her probably, and kills Parker. It's moving. It's like it's feeling the air with its hands. And it's like to me it's like a beautiful shot. Like it's almost like it's confused. Like I don't know what I'm doing really, but it almost feels like it's confused. It might be because it's just lost because it's not with the colony. It's not with the other the eggs or the alien queen, you assume. But I just love the design is horrifying, but how it introduces itself. It's not like I'm gonna grab you and I'm gonna tear you apart. It's slow at first. And like even when it reaches out to Brett, almost like it's brushing his face. Like, what am I looking at here? It's like, okay, this is meat. I need this. Like, I love that introduction to the full-grown drone alien. What do you guys? How did you guys feel about this scene? Because again, it's beautiful to me.
I want to add something. Oh,
go ahead, Deadpool. Go ahead.
The alien doesn't have eyes.
Yeah.
So it's feeling around because it's trying to sense what's around it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess also kind of adds to the menacing of it because. Yeah, it's literally just head and no eyes, with just mouth with a mouth inside of a mouth. So that kind of explains why it moves so slow. And when you get into aliens, I mean, they do kind of move slow, but it's almost like it's just a flood of just alien meat just coming after you. So it kind of adds to that into another level where it's just you're literally being overwhelmed by nature. Because one of the interesting things about it is that. It's not like most aliens where it's like an intelligent life form or it's just brute strength. It is essentially it's just an animal. It's an animal it's almost like a tiger stalking people in the woods. Like it's not supernatural, it's not super advanced. It's at its core, it's literally just a predator going after its prey.
It's doing what it does based on instinct. Yeah, I totally agree. Any other thoughts, guys? On just the creature design or the initial scenes with it, or the certain sequences with the alien that really spoke to you, that were horrifying or made you feel something.
So I was kind of watching the chest burster scene again, and one of my favorite parts is Yake. How do you say this?
Yaphet Kotto.
Yaphet Kotto. He's like, I'm gonna steal. Like, you see him pick up a knife. He's like, I'm gonna stab it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And then Ash stops him.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I like that. He's like, don't touch it, because he doesn't want him to touch it. He doesn't want him to kill it because he needs it. Yeah.
But I love it's weird. I think that's the one thing that always strikes out about the alien is that weird cinder. Like, it has a penis head. It has it has what Rawhead Rex wanted.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. That's Clyde Barker.
And the mouth. Design. I think there's just something so iconic about those things that it's hard to say that it changes. It's like, well, now an alien could be anything. It's like almost like a Victorian kind of vampire mixed with
gothic.
Very gothic.
It's I'm glad you brought up the penis, because that's it. This of course is based off of H.R. Geiger's designs. He was a concept artist, and he worked in the movie and the designs for it and everything, production. Very talented man, obviously created one of the most iconic movie monsters of all time. But no, the alien is a very sexual creature, where how it reproduces it's through rape, it's violence. And this movie, the themes of this movie are, I think, our fear of sex, our fear of rape, our fear of pregnancy. I think that's what it is. Having a creature gestate inside of you and there's nothing you could do. I mean, it's body horror. And I think that and this is one of the reasons why I'm such a fan of body horror. Just the idea of I can't, it's my own body. How do you fight that? What are you going to do? It's a hopeless fucking situation, with this thing inside of you and there's nothing. And it's just time until it fuses you up and it bursts out of you. That to me is what, so it's that's even more horrifying, maybe even facing the creature, because it's well, I'm on borrowed time. I'm fucked no matter what. And so at least I'd rather be one of the crew members that has to fight this thing. At least I have a semblance of a chance, even of how small it is. But it's those themes of rape and sex and pregnancy, and it's the most in regards to sex and with regards to pregnancy, the most twisted, horrifying versions of them possible.
I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Van.
Or Xavier, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to just say that I think my two favorite scenes with the alien were the one when it was in the vents and it was chasing Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way that's shot, because again, back to what I was saying about the respect factor with Parker and Ripley and the way that was shot. I feel like with this one, again, nowadays there would be a camera quick cut and back and forth, showing us where the alien is. Whereas this time, all we have to go on is Lambert crying in the background, no, don't go that way. And so I thought that scene was great. And also the when we see it on the ship, with Ripley, the way it looked like it was unraveling itself, and I was like, wow, that's really cool, and how it blended in, and how that was kind of the first time that we got to see a really good look of what the aliens, at least it's what its face looks like. And so I thought those were my two favorite scenes, really scary and everything.
Did anyone else have a particular favorite scene of the alien that appealed to them? We mentioned several, but if you want to go ahead and reiterate, or that's something that you really, really enjoyed and liked. Okay. Go ahead, Benny.
Well, I mean, it kind of, it's kind of like the Jaws effect for it, dude. Where you see snippets of the xenomorph, you see it little pieces here and there. Where except this time you didn't have a mechanical errors, which is why you didn't see the fucking shark so much. Here it's designed to kind of invoke more of that horror too, because again, it's more the unknown about the whole thing that works very well. I was just gonna make a joke that I think the chest busting scene is so iconic, but at the same time, a hot take, Spaceballs did it better.
Oh no, not again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's a horrifying scene, but it's been parodied.
Yeah, and
so many times
too. You bring back John Hurt for Spaceballs to do that too. How amazing is that too? And
that's funny.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I'm genuinely looking forward to watching the rest of these films because so as a fun side thing, I accidentally rented the wrong. I rented Aliens, not really paying attention. So I bought rented the director's cut to like the 3-hour version.
Oh yeah.
So the rest of my night tonight is going to be finishing Alien and then going into Alien director's cut because I'm not going to waste $8. And
yeah, no, man. I'll keep going. You have any last minute thoughts?
no, it's just I like it's doing such a good job already of like piquing my interest for it. Like I honestly just kind of thought like one of your earlier points about the themes of the film was also just more about the like how corporations kind of view our expendability for it too of its workers. Because especially with Ian Holmes' Ash character too is just kind of like he's there to make sure it happens. Like we are disposable. Like we mean nothing to a larger corporation. Like we die, whatever, as long as we get what we want. And it's kind of almost a commentary on the working class as well too.
Oh,
and
definitely.
It is just sort of like the like it's kind of almost like the consequences of the workplace and just the dangers of working there. It's weird how
It's a work hazard.
Yeah, like that's really what it is. But to like the company they work for, that's exactly what it is. It's just it's just a hazard, whatever. So I think there's always going to be like I think it does it in a very kind of like subtle commentary, which I think that's what some of the best horror films do. Is
yes,
like that's not exactly a hot take, but it's like they usually have like an analogy to real world situations for it. And I think also so that's one of the reasons why Covenant and Prometheus like are viewed so poorly by comparison. Like it's just shoving philosophy and theology down your throat, which is nobody gives a shit about that. Nobody wants that's not nuanced. Where Alien is much more nuanced, where it's kind of the balance of both the corporate stuff and the way you're describing like the rape and sex sort of analogies for it too. That's what makes it work so well too, and also why they're so like the alien becomes that personification of all that's kind of like wrong with what they're going through. And,
yes,
like in society and all that other stuff. And I think the Xenomorph captures perfectly because it's mysterious, it's evil, it's going to kill you without remorse, and like no one's going to remember you after you're gone.
No,
like,
very astute. Very astute. No, and that's the thing. It's like it's all that stuff is there. It's but it's not like they're hitting you over the head with a fucking hammer every other scene, going, "See, this is what this is about." It's like it's subtle. It's actually it's well written. That's what it is. It's not like you can't it's not like, oh, you can't have these things. You can have these things, but you have to weave them in the movie, and then you're like, oh, I see what's going on. Yeah. They're not treating you like a fucking idiot. Agreed. Yeah. Fully agree.
Yeah. The Sausage Party effect. Like, I hate that movie to death because it beats you over the head with what they're trying to say.
Exactly.
Worse being compared to like Blazing Saddles, where I think the same thing here is like where a horror film can have like its commentary in a very subtle way. Like Dawn of the Dead does it so well. Well, and because it tells it, and it's not punching you in the face with a giant sign about commercialism bad. Like this will say like like the stuff we've been talking about. It's just you can infer pretty quickly, and you can appreciate the message behind it.
Exactly. While also just appreciating the product and the stuff that even is not message based. It just, as a matter of fact, it just improves the message so much more.
Right. It's kind of like with to take it back into game to like with Doom, like 2016, where like there is a story and there's a plot to it too, but also at the same time, it's just a game with a lot of violence. Like you can say Alien is just a great horror film and just it's creepy, it's got a great monster and call it a day. Or if you're willing to kind of dig deeper, there's some messaging there too, which gives it a lot more depth to it too. So it attracts both the cinephiles and it attracts the horror enthusiasts and casual moviegoers too, which works like I think again why it's so iconic. Why it'll be around for another 40 years.
And to what you said, Vanny, I think the movie, you could read it as the Saxon Bible, but you could also read it as some kind of being the like ultimate cosmic horror of, just being in space, being alone. You see, as Chris said, Dallas sees the music. It's just, of just loneliness and just kind of the horror of that.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of different ways to read this movie.
No, there is. Even the alien's alone. When you think about it, it's separated. Maybe that's why it acts the way it does. Maybe that's why it's kind of like, it's unsure of itself the whole time because it's not with the queen, it's not with the we don't know there's a queen. Actually, I want to talk about the reproduction cycle of the alien and how that their initial ideas were. But you're right, it is about this loneliness. And I mean, just the idea of traveling, doing this kind of job is incredibly lonely. And then Ripley's inevitably alone by the end of the movie, unless you count the cat. But I do not count the cat.
I do want to add something that since Vanny's going to be seeing Aliens later tonight. And how we were talking about the subtle messages of the movie and the themes of it, like Aliens itself is basically about Vietnam, the Vietnam War, about you have a technologically powerful military versus a less technological enemy who uses the environment and numbers to their advantage.
That's a great point.
Holy shit!
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, you think you go in there and it's like, we're Marines, we love the Corps. It's like, oh, they got their fucking pulse rifles, they got their smart guns, they got all that shit for close encounters, and it's like, yeah, you've never messed with a threat like that knows its environment so intimately well. Great point, Deadpool.
Well,
Yeah.
Isn't also Aliens based on that old horror movie with the ants? I can't remember.
Them?
Yeah,
Them?
I think it is. It has some inspiration from them.
This one where Cameron really leaned into the insect-like nature of them, the whole concept of the hive and the alien queen, which was not actually a part of the Alien. Like, in matter of fact, I actually want, because I imagine you guys probably have seen the theatrical version of Alien more than the director's cut. There's a whole sequence of this movie which is actually really horrifying to me, but the whole concept of the Queen was not thought up by Ridley Scott or anyone or Dan O'Bannon. That was James Cameron. That's when they leaned into more of the insect stuff. Initially, what the reproduction cycle of the alien was going to be, to me, is even more horrifying. Where, because in the movie, in the theatrical version, you see Brett get taken away, you see Dallas get taken away, and that's it. You don't know what happens to them. You find out what happens to them in the director's cut, where Ripley comes upon them in like some, I don't know what nook or cranny in the Nostromo, and you see that Dallas has been glued to the wall basically, and that the alien has started to terraform the ship, which we see obviously more in Aliens, where it changes where you get that leathery, interior of the hive and stuff. But what the alien is doing, we can only assume now in the absence of the Queen, is literally turning Dallas and to a far greater degree Brett into an alien egg, where you see Brett and he's just this abomination.
Yeah.
Where it's like you can see like the egg taking form, so it's done something to them, their entire physiology. It's a horrifying scene, and where Dallas, he's there on the wall, and maybe he's using him as food. For possibly the egg or for itself, but he's just begging Ripley, kill me, and we hear that line repeated in Aliens with a certain character, and it's just it's she burns him, but it's cool because they were like they didn't know like what the physiology of this thing was going to be, but to that I think that's even more horrifying. Like I'd rather that thing fucking kill me than to turn me into something else. So I wanted to mention that scene. This is kind of like all I had. I mean, is there any other like last minute things that you wanted to discuss that you wanted to like I wanted to just make a point about this? I mean, just kind of to wrap up myself, I feel like this movie does so much right in terms of its setting, the atmosphere that it builds, the very realistic grounded performances, the alien creature itself. Wanted to give a shout out because this is a man in a suit. This is a man in a rubber suit. I think Ridley Scott, like he was at like a bar in the UK or something, or in London, and he saw this African gentleman who was like, I think 7 feet tall. His name was Bolaji Badeo. I think that's how you say his name, if I'm mispronouncing it. But he was the one who was mostly in the suit for a lot of the movie. And the suit itself looks so cool. But yeah, I mean, it gave us one of the most iconic monsters to ever grace cinema. Created one of cinema's greatest heroines in Ellen Ripley. But yeah, it's like if I have a criticism against the movie, is like one of the data aspects is, again, I go back to that shot with Ian Holm when he's on the table where it's like, that's a paper mache head. And you do that quick. It's like, I know what you just did. You can't hide that. And it feels like there would have been an easier way to do it. But like, other than that, it's one of my favorite films of all time. It's a movie that if people have not seen, I want to show them and didn't say like, this is like one of my, this is sci-fi horror to me. This is what defines it so well. But yeah, we just, any last minute thoughts?
So for as long as I've known you, like that's been something that we've kind of discussed, that where I absolutely need to go back and watch these films, and I feel bad because it's one of those things like I'll get to it, and then I just never did, and I felt shit about doing that. And now that I finally like want to sit down because I wanted to be part of the conversation for this, and even just watching just that little piece of it now is like I get it, I totally do, and like having seen some other like sci-fi horror films like Event Horizon or Sunshine. And seeing like where it gets a lot of its inspiration from, and even now like when you do your class in the Glass Lab today, like my questions are themed around Dead Space, and now I'm like, holy crap, it's like the first good Aliens film outside of like Alien versus Predator. Dude, first one sucked, but I get it now. Like I totally I get the appeal now after seeing after all this time, and it's timeless. God damn it, this is a timeless film.
Yeah. Anyone else with their kind of last minute thoughts or a particular thing you wanted to emphasize?
I think Ridley Scott did, such an amazing job directing this, Blade Runner, a bunch of other movies, that he needs to stop directing alien movies. Just retire, man. You're 83.
I agree with that. No, I'm right there with it. It's like, I've talked about this many times on stream and other podcasts and Double Toasted. It's just that he suffers from the same thing I feel like a lot of filmmakers later suffers, that they don't remember what made their original vision or movie so good. They forget. Same thing happened with Lucas. Same thing happens with Steven Spielberg. It happened with him. It's like you don't even have the same aesthetic anymore. Like, why in Prometheus, Alien Covenant, everyone has fucking touch screens and there's holograms everywhere? That was not in Alien. It's not even Aliens, which he had nothing to do with. But it's like when you don't even know what the original aesthetic was to your movie. It's like, why are you doing this? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. But then Xavier Deadpool, do you guys have any like last minute thoughts or something that you wanted to just mention?
Not really. I mean, I just think to get movies really good. And I actually never seen. I've always said that my first Alien movie was Alien Resurrection. So I always have a guilty pleasure for that movie where I'm like, oh, this movie is great. But I never seen Aliens or Alien 3, so maybe this time I'll finally watch Aliens.
Aliens is worth it. What about you, Deadpool? Any last minute thoughts?
Well, it's funny because Aliens was the one that I saw first, because I prefer action movies over the horror. Right. So when I was told, oh yeah, Aliens is just the action version of it, I'm like, okay, I'll jump into that first, and then went back and watched the Aliens. So it's just like, but kind of add to your point earlier about filmmakers, it seems like when they get older in their career, especially when they're established, I think one of the reasons why they forget what made it work, because when they're younger, they're kind of just piecing everything together, because they have limited budgets, technology is limited, and they're trying to figure it out. But when you're older in your career, you pretty much can do whatever you want. Like heck, Ridley Scott, if he could have had like touch screens and holograms back in the original movie, he probably would have done it. But he had to kind of piece together what he could do and what he could afford. I think that limitations on what you can do artistically, I think, creates innovation. And then when you have unlimited resources, you get kind of lazy. You're not trying to make something cool and interesting because you can just we'll just throw CGI in it.
That's a great point. No, it's a great point. Yeah, it's like you have these filmmakers like they want to prove themselves, but they have a lower budget, and they're like, I can't do this in the way I want to do it, so we have to do it this way. And so many years pass by, and people get used to something like that, and that's the aesthetic of that movie. But then when they come back, you're right, and they're like, well, I have all this technology, and I have an infinite budget, I could do CGI. It's like, this is a match. You're absolutely right, man. That's a fantastic point.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
For Dan O'Brien, Dan O'Brien.
Dan O'Bannon, the screenwriter. Yeah.
This is actually his second space trucker movie.
That's right. Yep.
Dark Star was his first one, and you can see a lot of the same elements between the two.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely.
Like, they could
John
take
Carpenter's
the
Dark
same
Star
universe.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
Wasn't that his first film, or his college film, or anything of it? Is that the different one?
That was John Carpenter's. It was a student film that he actually basically put out the theaters. Or had like a limited theatrical run. But it was originally like a student film. Yeah, that was John Carpenter and Dan O'Bannon. You're right. And yeah, basically Dan O'Bannon said, you're right, Deadpool. He liked that. He liked his idea for Dark Star, but he wanted to make it one where it was like, okay, let's not make it's really scary now. So yeah, no, it's great. That's a good point to bring up. So to see how that film influenced another one, had a major impact on it, and obviously made a better one. But yeah, no, I mean, I hope you guys enjoyed doing this, and I hope I'm going to put this audio out there. So we'll keep working on it, and I feel like this was a good first episode. This Discourse, as Vanny has coined. I love that name. That's very good, Vanny. But yeah, that was Alien. I want to hear your guys' opinions on this in the comments, whether it be on the Patreon or on YouTube, where I will eventually post this after a time.